So you just got the PS5. Well, guess what? Sony's already working on a PS5 Pro. The PS5 has only been out for a few weeks now, but Sony is already looking towards the future if a couple of patents they applied for are to be believed. According to a site called T3, back on July 30th, Sony filed for a couple of patents for a brand new PS5 that's going to be twice as powerful as the current one. Literally. Maybe. So my thinking on this one is that if Sony a couple years down the road revisits the PS5 design and tries to come up with a brand new GPU, not only is that going to be comparatively way more expensive, but they also run into the issue that it's going to be harder to develop for that console and the inevitable slim model that's definitely going to release around the same time. It's also much cheaper for them to just take two of the current GPUs they're using and put them in that new console, because as time goes on, these parts are going to get cheaper for them to produce. So it's kind of a win-win for them, because if they take two of the chips that they're already using and put them in this new console, the developers will already know what they're working with, it'll be cheaper for them, and then they'll have a more powerful console that they can sell to us 2 years down the line, even though we just bought PS5s, if you can find one. So like I already mentioned, this patent application is extremely dense, and I read through the entire thing. It's full of a lot of repetition that focuses mainly on that dual GPU architecture, because that's the big new change. But they also say that they're going to include more RAM, which I'm going to assume is like directly linked to that brand new GPU. I don't really know the technical stuff here. I played Astro's Playroom. I love the GPU level with the GPU song that is stuck in my head for the rest of my life. But yeah, the big improvement here is that you're going to have two GPUs working together to make your games look better, so that when Sony comes back in like 2 or 3 years and says, hey, we got a brand new PS5 Pro for you guys to spend money on, you're going to want to do it. And let's be real, so am I. Going into this generation, I was actually wondering if they'd even bother doing a mid-gen refresh, because unlike the jump from PS3 and Xbox 360 to PS4 and Xbox One, this actually feels like a generational leap. Last time around, it seemed like we were getting one, but then we realized that games weren't able to really solidly run at 1080p 30 frames per second on PS4, and they weren't even able to hold 900p 30 frames per second on Xbox One, which in my opinion was pretty unacceptable. Like, I feel kind of dumb for getting tricked by that. So when the Xbox One X and the PS4 Pro came out, they felt like necessary upgrades, and they were well justified. Like, we got games like Horizon Zero Dawn that came out right with that PS4 Pro, and they were kind of 4K, it was mostly 1440p, but it looked a lot better, and most importantly, it ran a lot better. And a lot of games that came out after that, like Shadow of the Colossus, shipped with performance modes that allowed you to kind of lock your game around 60 frames per second. I know towards the end of the generation, that performance mode became a necessity, which isn't great, and it wasn't able to hold that 60 frames per second, but they got on the right track with it, and that's why with the PS5 and the Xbox Series X, we're seeing a lot of games ship with these performance or resolution options. We got that because of that mid-gen refresh, so I'm happy we got it, but this time around, I feel like they're going to have to work a lot harder to really tell us why, when we just spent $500 on an Xbox Series X and PS5, we would need to upgrade them so soon into their life cycles. And I'm really not sure how they're going to improve them, but I did have some ideas. One of the big talking points for this theoretical PS5 Pro is 100% going to be 8K, because they've already talked about it with the PS5, which does support 8K output. None of the games on the PS5 are going to hit that right now, but if you think about it, in the near future, we're probably going to see games that can hit it, because an RTX 3090 is able to play games at 8K. I don't really think that's something to get too excited for, especially when you consider that a TV that utilizes all of the PS5's power and all of its new features in 4K resolution is pretty cost prohibitive. We did a video on the Austin Evans channel about an LG NanoCell that's 49 inches and $600. That's an outlier though, and when you look at all of the other options you have out there, you're gonna be spending at least $1,000, maybe even $1,200, $1,300 if you really want a 4K TV that has 120 hertz. So thinking about 8K down the line, that's just, it's what they're going to focus on, but I don't think it's anything people really need to be concerned about. I think it's an exciting prospect, but by the time this actually happens, you're basically going to be the beta tester for it, like we were with 4K on the PS4 Pro and Xbox One. I think it's going to be really cool, but I think it's going to be having its potential maximized, I guess is the way to put it, on the next console after the PS5 Pro. Because think about it, if you bought into the PS4 Pro, which look, a lot of people did, you probably upgraded your TV to a 4K model. And there are a ton of 4K TVs that are 50, 55 inches that were around $350, $400 when that console came out. The problem is the PS5, which actually utilizes 4K resolution in a cool way and has 120 Hertz and all these extra features, isn't going to be totally compatible with that TV you bought all the way back when the PS4 Pro came out. So if you maybe wait and hang on to your launch PS5 or get this slim model that they're definitely going to come out with probably at least a couple new features, you'll probably be better set for the long run. And then when you have a true next generation leap to the PS6 or whatever they're going to call it, you'll be able to actually take advantage of 8K gaming and buy a TV that's going to match up with it. I think that's probably the best way to go. And if you are the kind of person who wants to have the best when you can have it, you're going to see a lot of advantages for some older games that you might have missed, because as we all know, every open world game at this point is like 600 hours long. So if you want to be that kind of person who plays everything, you're going to be at it a while. And then when this PS5 Pro comes out, you can go back and play Ghost of Tsushima. Even though it's a PS4 game, it did get a PS5 upgrade at 8K at 60 frames per second. You can spend hundreds of hours running around Assassin's Creed Valhalla doing all of this really cool at 8K resolution, or maybe even the 4K mode will actually run at 60 frames per second and not have a ton of screen tearing, because that is one thing that's really killing me with this current generation stuff we've got going on right now. Look guys, I don't get any of this shit for free. I'm paying for it the same as you are. I don't know any of the technical aspects of any of this, and Sony files patents all the time. So as far as we know, this could be totally fake. It could just be a completely different console we're getting in a few years. But it is interesting to talk about for me, especially because I did manage to get a PS5, and thinking about having to buy a new one in 3 years and go through the pain and turmoil on Amazon, it just doesn't sound fun at all. Even though I just said this could be totally fake, I'm pretty positive at this point we are going to see a Pro model of some sort. And as for when that's going to happen, we could just look at the PS4 to PS4 Pro. So the PS4 came out in November of 2013, the PS4 Pro came out in November of 2016. So if my math is correct, and this one's pretty simple, we're probably going to be seeing this PS5 Pro around November of 2023. I think that's when we're going to see it. I put money on it at this point. Another change I'd really like to see for the PS5 Pro and the Slim is related to the SSD. So onboard storage on this bad boy right now is around 825 gigs. And if you include the OS, which takes up around 200 gigs or something like that, you end up with like 625 usable gigabytes of storage, which honestly, like, come on, that's more than the base PS4, but that came out in 2013. And yes, the SSDs are somehow making it so that games are smaller, but we're having all these problems where if you put in Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War, for some reason it downloads the PS4 version as well. And if you want to transfer your save from Spider-Man to Spider-Man Remastered, you got to have both versions. And yeah, I know the OS makes it easier to delete games and reinstall them, but I just want things simpler. So both of these models, no matter what, should definitely have 1 terabyte on board. And if they really want to make me happy, which is the point of Sony existing, they should do 2 terabytes. Like, come on, they can afford it. To be 100% honest with you guys, no matter what the theoretical upgrade ends up being on the PS5 to the PS5 Pro, I'm definitely going to pick it up, because at the end of the day, I'm a PC gamer at heart. I love getting 60 frames per second locked. I usually play around 1440p, but the one thing I can't really get on PC is that PlayStation 5 exclusive goodness. Their first party games are absolutely incredible. And I know, like, they're putting some of their first party stuff on PC, they're toying with it and testing the waters, but their first example, Horizon Zero Dawn, is straight up one of the worst ports I've ever played. And it's just not really something that I'd prefer to play on PC over even a PS4 Pro. So keeping that in mind, anything I can do to close the gap between consoles and PC as far as consistency goes, I'm going to do. I'm going to pick up that PS5 Pro so I can play Spider-Man Miles Morales or Spider-Man 2 at that point with the beauty mode on, and also stay at 60 frames per second, because that's the PC gamer in me. I wouldn't notice otherwise, but I've cursed myself to know what 60 frames per second locked with great graphics looks like, and I'm just gonna go with it at this point because that's what makes me happy. So yeah guys, that's all I have for you today. If you wanna make sure you're PS ready, make sure you click the subscribe button and ring that notification bell so you never miss an upload. My name is Jimmy Champagne, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.